YouTube. We are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the British Science Week lecture on advice from a former student before joining the computer science or games industry. And as usual, if you have any questions or comment, please use the YouTube chat to interact with us. And I hope you enjoyed this session. However, though, it's just 2 o'clock, just started. And I'm pretty sure there will be more people joining us. So before we start the chat, hello, Zach. How are you doing?
Hi,
How
Oliver.
are you doing today?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Oh, very, very good. It's nice and sunny, even though we had endless showers earlier today. It just happens at the time when I was putting the bin outside. And I got basically wet. Not fun at all.
Yeah, it just can't decide what it wants to do at the moment, can it?
Yes, yeah. It feels like April showers in March, but that's how it is.
I must apologize for the weird angle that my camera's at. Like, I don't know why, but the makers of this laptop decided to put the camera on the bottom of the screen, not the top. So it's always gets commented on when I do video calls and stuff.
No worries. I don't think you're going to be typing where your hands are right in front of the camera.
That is very true. Yeah, I don't know who thought it would be a good idea to put it down.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Especially, it's not the best position. Yes. Yeah. Well, as I've been streaming quite a lot over the last couple of months, teaching online. I had a talk on Monday about crowd AI, so I've got a little streaming camera set up with the background and everything, where I can show off my Millennium Falcon Lego on the side, my board games in the background.
I like that. A little bit of a flex.
Yep.
I do wonder how much money people have spent on streaming setups with all these like working from home different things and like that. I wonder how many people are going to come out of it having so much new stuff.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. I know a colleague of mine working at the University of Lincoln, Chris Hadley, and most of the students watching now most likely know him. His background looks impressive because he's got endless guitars set up with LED lights around it, and it looks fantastic. He even got a green screen that you can just pull down and change the background.
That's impressive.
It is. Well, as I've just got Lego in the background, and board games. That works too. All right, it's a couple of minutes past 2 o'clock. Do you think we should start?
Yeah.
What do people say in the chat? The chat is still very quiet. Pepsi is there. Hello, Pepsi. He spent over 2K on streaming stuff over the last year. Yes. But Pepsi, I know him. Actually, he was a student at the University of Lincoln as well, and he's got his own game studio up and running. If you want to mention the game that you're working on currently, feel free to give a shout out. Yes, and he's been streaming with his company. No, I'm not sure. He's been streaming on YouTube, him playing video games and other stuff, doing dev stuff. I'm not so sure. Only watch it occasionally. Sorry, Tom.
That's an impressive amount of money, though. You must have a killer setup. So you've got to get your money's worth out of it now. Do plenty of streaming.
Yes, his game is called Broadcast. I forgot about it. It's coming out soon, isn't it? Actually, I've seen a couple of screenshots how it changed a lot. If you want to give a URL where to find more detail about your game, go for it as well. I'm sure people will visit that page.
What kind of game is it? Do you?
We call the Steam page as well. Oh,
out now, early access. Get yourselves on it. There you go. 2D MMORPG. That sounds like my kind of stuff. I'm definitely going to have to check that out after this.
That's great. All right, it's 5 past.
Yeah, shall we get going?
I think let's start, if that's okay with you, Zach. We've got plenty of people. Yep. All right, so I'm leaving the floor to you. I'm going to remove myself from the stream. So enjoy the talk, guys. Don't forget that you can always ask questions over YouTube chat. All right.
Yes. Thanks, Oliver.
Zach, the floor is all for you.
That's great. So yeah, as Oliver said, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to try and keep my eye on it. There'll be a question section right at the end, but maybe you've got a burning question that you need to ask during, and feel free to do so. So yeah, as the title of the stream says, and this handy title slide on this presentation, I'm an ex-student from the Uni of Lincoln, and I'm just kind of going to offer you some advice from a perspective of giving you some examples of what I went through and things that I did, and hopefully that'll help when you kind of come to making some sort of decision about what to do. Hopefully it will motivate you. That's the main goal. So I'll start with who I actually am, what I do. So as I already said, ex-student. I'm also a QA tester at Rockstar. I'm not going to talk massively about that today, but if there's any very broad questions about professional QA and like the industry, I'll do my best to answer them. Obviously, there's only so much you can really talk about. I'm also, outside of that, a musician. Been doing music for, must be like 10 years or so now, maybe at least. So I'm starting to feel real old. And that's kind of progressed dramatically over that time. And I think a lot of that is down to the things I'm going to talk about today, and the mentality that is kind of come from that. So that's kind of what I'm hoping that you guys can get from it, is taking these examples that I'm giving you and the lessons that I learned from them, and hopefully then being able to apply them to your own projects, your own lifestyle decisions. And yeah, hopefully they'll do for you what they kind of did for me. And yeah, so this is the second time doing this talk, and I've done like a couple of other talks before. So I guess I'm a public speaker now. I guess that's how it works, I think. Next, I just need to write some book about how everybody's on their phones all the time or something, and then that'll make me a real professional. So yeah, so went to the Uni of Lincoln for just on a 3-year course. It was about 4 years ago, I think, when I graduated. Wow, I really do feel old. And I studied games computing. Yeah, that's basically. I'll cover the more interesting details of it now. So during that time period, went through a lot of pain and struggle. As you can see, when DM rolls are 20, that's like the biggest struggle there can be. And from those experiences, I learned a lot from just hitting obstacles and just basically feeling real low. And obviously at the time, you can't really necessarily appreciate the way that you're going to learn from a bad feeling or a bad moment. But just appreciating that you will learn from it goes a hell of a long way. Like now, when something bad happens, obviously I'll feel crap for a bit, but kind of just telling myself that this will be a learning experience. And I think that's something that just professionally, like managers and things like that, will almost always try to lead you in that direction, because you never want to see anybody in a situation where, you know, that maybe like you got like stats for something and maybe you're lower than you should be or you want to be. Nobody wants to just immediately say, oh, you screwed it up, get out. Like nobody wants that. Everybody wants you to learn and push forward. And especially yourself, you should want that for yourself. So even the hardest of times can be the most useful in the end. In fact, probably more useful than just immediately doing great from the start. So start with over ambition. I've got some little notes on there, which I didn't have when I did this in person. So it's quite useful, like doing it like this. So during, I think, my second year, I did a games programming course, module, sorry. And during that time, it was the module was quite open, basically allowed for a lot of kind of choice on what you wanted to do for your final kind of project for that module. And I was just crazy ambitious. I went overboard because, you know, everybody's got ideas. And the issue is taming yourself back on those. And it's one of those things where I'm not going to say don't be ambitious, because then you'd never get anything cool made. But it's all about learning the range of your ambition and what you can do. And once you kind of have done things a couple of times, you'll kind of learn that. So games programming was probably the biggest learning experience for me, where I thought that I was going to make this incredible, crazy, like, physics game where you like killed yourself a bunch of times and then you respawned and then used the dead body from the previous run to solve a puzzle or something, and trying to do all of this in like OpenGL C++. It was never going to happen, but I was deadly serious that I was going to do it. And it only went, it only took about I think until a week before the project. And then it was at that point that I was like, I'm never going to get this done. And I had a genuine, like, it was like a hard kind of moment where, like, there was genuine panic of like, I'm a week away from the deadline. What am I going to do here? But the next day, after I stressed out overnight, the next day I just went to the computer labs, stayed basically all day. I think I was like 8 a.m. until midnight, because this was before the labs were open 24 hours. So they closed at midnight. So left the labs at midnight, went to the library, I think, until about 2-3 a.m. Went home, went to sleep. Same again next day, and just solidly for a week worked insanely hard because I was just completely backed into a corner. But rather than having this crazy lofty ambition of, I'm going to make the world's greatest game in a week, instead I just got the marking scheme and just worked my way through it, ticking it off one by one, making sure that I had everything in that was needed. And then I came out of that module and I got a first. So I guess I kind of learned from doing that, that I shouldn't push myself to the brink of impossible tasks. Also, learning just how hard I can actually work when I really put my mind to it. And I think that's something that you'll only ever find by being in that kind of situation where you do just have to give everything to it. And also, I kind of just learned the way to do things, especially in an education perspective. I mean, going all the way back to, this is kind of going a little bit on a tangent away from the uni stuff, but kind of going all the way back to like my college period. I like failed a module and did the same thing. I just once a week just did a practice paper until I just knew exactly what they wanted from an examining perspective and just absolutely nailed it because I'd put in enough work to get to that point. So sometimes it does take being overambitious and pushing yourself too far to the edge and thinking like you've got no hope. And then that's when you really need to just kick it in. And that's when you can learn how much you can put into something. Obviously, I'm not saying leave everything to the last minute. Don't do that. Don't stress yourself out like that. I would never recommend stressing yourself out to that point. But sometimes you can get something good out of that. And it's all about learning where your limits are. Going kind of on from that then, I think in the same year, we had a group project. And there was a big issue with communication and getting everything to work and finished to the point that we wanted to get to. And also, I guess the teamwork side of that is also a factor of it. So I'll talk about just the general group project side. We had like the worst luck. We had the like in the first semester, somebody dropped out within like a week or something. So we were already a team member down. And that was just in the preliminary stages of working out what we were going to do. The second semester was actually doing it. Fortunately, the few of us that were left all kind of banded together and used that fact that we were a man down or a person down to push us forward, and got something decent out of it. Once again, though, we were probably a bit too overambitious with what we came up with. And then that just kind of steamrolled into the second semester, where about halfway through, somebody else in the group left. So then there were even fewer of us. But we kind of used that as a moment to scale back our ambitions of what we were doing and assess, okay, there's 3 of us that were working on this now. What are we going to do? What can we each do? And nailing down just the specifics of what everybody was good at, what everyone was capable of, and just powering it back. And to be fair, after that, we came out with something relatively decent. And so, although you can look at it from a perspective of, losing a team member, not great, and it feels like, oh, we just got the worst luck in the world, you can sometimes use those to then really solidify what you currently have, and focus into something smaller, simpler, easier to manage. And the team came together because of the losses that we collectively had. So you learn a lot through teamwork, and I'll talk a bit more about like teamwork and collaboration and stuff later. But you kind of get through a lot of understanding with a team when you kind of collectively go through some shit. So it's quite useful to just take a step back when something goes wrong. Just if it's out of your control, it's out of your control. And just process it and move forward with that knowledge. Similarly, with the communication side of things, and the learning what you can do, and what you should do. I think it was after. I think it might have been after. I think it was in third year. Sorry. There was a master's student in the media department that I'd gotten in touch with me through some lecturers that I knew, and he had this incredible ambition for his master's project. This crazy project that he wanted to do, but he didn't know the coding side of things. I think it was like web coding type stuff. And the issue was that his communication was just terrible. So we never got on the same page, really. I think we had maybe like 2 meetings. And me and the other person who was with me working on the code side of things, basically we both just decided that there was no communication. We didn't know what he really wanted. We would come up with an idea and a plan, and we'd go to him and he would say something else. And that was a good example of a time where you're in a team and somebody is just kind of off on their own, and it kind of destabilizes it. And although me and the other person working on the code stuff, we worked out relatively all right, we came up with some ideas, we felt pretty confident about doing things. With it being someone else's project and then wanting something completely different that was outside of the realms of possibility, we both just said to him, we don't know if we can do this, and had a genuine just discussion with him about it. And then he kind of said that he was feeling the same thing as well, and he decided to change his project proposal. And I think that's an example where there was poor communication throughout that preliminary stage, but all it took was some genuine communication about how we did not think that it was going the way that we were capable of doing, and something that we felt comfortable doing in the time span that we had. And all it took was that, and then the person whose project it was really understood that actually they needed to pile back their idea a bit and you do something that was a little bit more possible. So they can kind of all feed into each other. These things is like, if you've got poor communication, potentially that's down to a lack of teamwork ethic. Maybe it's down to some over ambition, but that can kind of be solved via good communication. And the same with the other things is, if you've got poor communication, but your ambitions are set in a good range, that it's something that you can all do, it can kind of help solve all those other things. And one thing that the last point that's kind of a little bit outside of it, I'd say that this is just something that's generally a bit of advice for everyone, especially going into, if you're working on like dissertations, big projects, picking something that you're passionate about will help with all of those other points. If you're not passionate about what you're working on, the issue is that you're never going to want to try and solve all of those other things. And sometimes being too passionate about an idea and refusing to let it go, as I gave the example with the game programming thing, where I was like desperate, I could do this crazy idea, when really it wasn't. I didn't have the time to do it. I was working in way too lower level to actually achieve the goal that I had in my mind. I was so passionate about it that I refused to see that I was being overambitious until I took a step back and really thought about it. So passion can be both beneficial and it can be detrimental, and you kind of need to be as passionate about something as you can, whilst also understanding that any idea, even if it's incredible, will never be great if you can't do it. So I'm not trying to say don't be passionate about things. I'm not like, so who's this dickhead telling me that I shouldn't enjoy like doing what I do. That's not what I mean. It's just from a perspective of understanding that when you're passionate about something, you have to maybe just take a step back and maybe cut things out. Like even the biggest companies in the world working on like incredible projects will make cuts when it needs to be done, whether it's for time constraints or whether there's like a certain department that's not working as well, or maybe like an entire department is ill and they can't do a certain thing within a certain time period. Cuts will sometimes need to be made, and you should never see that as an anti-passion. It's just using your passion for something beneficial so that then you can achieve a general version of what you wanted to complete. So let's talk about successes, because struggles and stuff are kind of just sad. And like this picture right in the middle is probably the greatest success anyone's ever seen. That was like from a house party at uni, and it's probably my favorite picture from my time at uni. So enjoy that. It's going to be stuck in your minds, I bet. So going away from the specifics of like module based things, there was a point where I was walking around the labs. Obviously can't do that at the moment, but it's you'll get the point hopefully, and it will be applicable however way things are in the world. So walking around the labs at one point, and I see there's like a poster for like an exchange, not an exchange, like a trip to Sichuan University in China, doing a course over there. And it was part of they had like a scheme where they got a bunch of different universities from a bunch of different countries all kind of together doing different things dependent on the course. So I just saw it, and I think it was like they could only take like 3 people. And I thought, what the hey, I'll apply. Might as well. ended up getting through, and it was incredible. Going to this other country and both learning computer things and also learning about a different culture. We all got paired off with local students who they took us around, showed us things, and had some crazy food like a frog leg and stuff like that. Also, not that great. I don't think they actually really eat that over there. I think it's just kind of a thing that they made us eat to joke around, see if we'd actually do it. But it was a great experience, and one that I think for a bit of time I just did not think it was like. I think I'd seen the posters around, and I was like, I want to apply for it. I'm not gonna get through. Like, what's the point? But I did. I applied, and I got through, and it was a crazy week, and it ended up being useful from a education perspective as well, because whilst we were over there, we did mobile development, and then this was like between second and third year, and then in third year, one of the modules I ended up doing was about mobile development, and it was in the exact same thing that we'd been learning whilst over there. And so for about the first third or so of the course, I was like, I know that, I recognize that thing. So it was really useful for helping ease me into that module and kind of having that basis of knowledge, and being able to help other people on the module from a position that was quite confident. And that never would have happened if I never just threw out the application just to see. So it's quite beneficial, I think, just in general, when there's an application anywhere for something that you think that would be cool to do, just apply. Like, you're not hurting anyone by applying. If it's something you've got to pay for, obviously you've got to weigh things up there. But if it's a completely free application, just submit it. You never know. You might get through, and you might get to do some crazy thing and take a picture of a nice bridge. That was the best picture I could think to take. The rest of them were lots of just pictures of my face and weird selfies in places. So it was a dark time for photography. So during the kind of, I think, like the second half of second year and third year, so kind of around about the same time as the China trip, but then a lot longer in terms of how long we were doing it. Me and a few of my friends in uni started the Tabletop Society. One of my friends was just super into D&D. He was the DM for like so many different groups, including one that I was a player in. And he was just like, should we just start a society in third year? Which, when you really think about it, is a terrible idea. It's starting a society in the year that you're most busy. But it kind of turned out as a great way to kind of get away from the solidity of coursework and do something a bit different. Like my role there was, I was the trying to remember my role title was community coordinator, which basically just meant that I organized us going out and getting drunk, which was, I think, the best role. And it was just, it was a great way to meet new people, do something else. And I think from talking to a lot of the people that were friends of mine or that I met like via my course or other things that then became members, I think for them, just being members, not even part of the actual committee, it was just a great way to do something else, meet some other people. And some people there ended up becoming incredibly close friends, like live together now. So it kind of, although seeming like it was a distraction from uni work, really it made us more well-rounded as people, because even if just the members just meeting new people and getting new opinions on things and playing new games, getting different experiences. And from the committee members' perspective, I mean, there's a point where we were going to try and organize a protest. That was a wild, crazy time, and then everything kind of worked out all right. But it was just having a bit of something to focus on outside of work, and also kind of feeding into work, helping with the communication side of things, the teamwork side of things, and just keeping our spirits high so that we could be passionate about both uni work and this society that we built. I'm pretty sure it's still going now. I think we left it and there's like 100 members strong or something. I think it's just gone on even better, which is really nice to see. And it's kind of like a weird lasting legacy, I guess. And then even more uni-based in terms of events and things. I did quite a bit of open day volunteering. So just talking to people about the course, hoping to convince prospective students that, why the uni is great. And getting out of that, it was great from a perspective. Like what I got out of that was it kind of just kept my passion for the uni going. It meant that I felt like I could give back for all the learning I'd done, or the stuff like the China trip and things like that. And it was great to just ooze that and just tell other people how great things are, which in turn helped with feeling like things were going great. And just in general, things like this talk, for example, it's just a way to give back and also, get some other opinions, meet new people. I think on one open day, I talked to some people who gave me like some business cards. In fact, I even talked to the recruitment guys for the place I now work. So it kind of all folded back into each other. And I think that having met them, it meant that I could share some jokes with them. I could feel a bit more comfortable going into the interview. I felt like I kind of knew the guys and I could kind of reference things we talked about before. And I don't think I ever would have had that if I didn't work on the open days, because as just a student, why would you go to an open day for a uni you're already at? You don't need to. And also, in terms of like a more tangible thing getting out of it, I mean, I'm sure you can see my incredible placement of freebies on that desk. That was like my main thing that I always focused on. Love a good bit of crazy organization, bit of weird art with pens and torches, and I don't know what those other things are, maybe like earbuds or something. But aside from that, in terms of a tangible reward, if that helps, like I ended up coming out of uni and getting a award for outstanding contribution. But mainly that was just for all of the open days that I'd worked, and I felt like I'd gotten out of that just as much as I put in fact, maybe even more. And it was a sacrifice of a few hours at a weekend every few months. And it just feels like that has changed how I communicate with people and how confident I feel talking in this kind of scenario, or any kind of general face-to-face kind of discussion about things. And I feel incredibly passionate about the uni because of the things that I learned doing that, and just the mentality that I got from it. And there's also just general self-reflective time. Looking back on my time at uni, I think that like probably one of the best things I got was just the independence and learning that how I am as a person and how I work, and just learning about myself, which sounds super cheesy. It sounds like something you'd see on like a high school teen drama or something like that. But as much as it kind of sounds like that, it is true. I do feel like I know myself a lot more now than I did before uni. And a lot of that is down to these things I'm talking about, these opportunities that I just kind of seized and did. And that would be my biggest recommendation, is if there's something that you think you might be interested in doing, just go for it. Worst case scenario. So for example, the China trip, worst case scenario, I just didn't get it. I didn't go. But best case scenario, you do something crazy for 10 days and it affects the way you progress in your life for, forever, for the time being. I feel that the things that I learned there and the things I did, I love telling crazy stories about going to a club in the middle of Chengdu and just getting drunk, and then all of our guides leaving us and just trying to find our way back home. Things like that. Incredible. And I don't think I would have had it. Well, I wouldn't have had it if I just didn't apply for it and just give it a go. Shoot my shot, as the kids today say. God, I do feel old. So, as mentioned earlier, outside of the education side of things and outside of my current job, I've been a musician for like 10 or so years. And having that outside extracurricular, I guess you could say, but it's not curricular anymore. My life is not in education, but having that outside passion. Same with how I was saying before about the open days and like feeding into my education and the other things that I did outside of work. This is something that has been part of my life for so long and has evolved with that. Like when I first started, I was doing like guitar lessons and learning Maroon 5 covers because that's what everyone wants to hear. But as I kind of did things across my time at uni and even post uni, I really learned how to respect myself creatively and what I really enjoyed and what I really could do musically. And I think that probably my biggest regret is that during my time at uni, where I had so much time, really, I didn't really seize that chance. I didn't really work on music as much as I would love to now. So that's like another, I guess, recommendation is whilst you're still at uni, whilst you're still in education, if you have something you're passionate about that you think, I really love working on this. Obviously, try not to make it like a detriment to other things in your life. If you desperately need to do something else, don't just like completely sack it off for something else. But if you're passionate about something, just do it and get out there. And if you think that it's something that you would like to do after uni, like professionally, the amount of work that you put in now will only make that more possible. Like it's something that I would love to do professionally, but I don't think I put in enough work during my uni time to just get straight out of uni and just do it. It's something that I need to still keep plying away and hope that at some point doing gigs here and there around my work, that it will kind of just become a bigger part of my life. So yeah, it's the biggest regret, and it has challenged me and pushed me forward in different ways from a creative perspective. Obviously, uni work is quite structured, and you kind of you know what you're doing. You kind of get told you're doing this kind of thing, and obviously there's maybe group projects and dissertation and things like that. You maybe have a bit of choice in the matter, but there's always kind of a bit of solidity to it. Whereas this was something that it's just all me. I come up with the idea, and it's as flexible as anything. I could change that and do something else. It's all my own work. So whilst that can feel daunting, I think that the amount that I put into it has helped me to understand what I can do. Jumping into a project with some friends and they're like, oh, we need some backing music for this thing. I know that it will take me a certain amount of time, and I only know that because of the amount I've put into it already and the amount I know myself. And probably the biggest kind of example point that I can give for that is there was a time where I had an idea for an album. I was like, okay, I've got some like tracks I've written. I've got some other stuff that's kind of like half done. I'm like, oh, this would all fit together really great. And I was just so overcome with this. Oh, I need to make some music. I need to throw all this in. And I like worked, I think, like woke up at like 5:30 in the morning every day, and like working nights as well. So that was just like, I basically got like no sleep, and just worked solidly on it all the day, and then worked in the evening, and then went to sleep, and then woke up the next day. And just for a month, I just drew a calendar out and wrote down everything I was going to do. And it taught me so much from an organizational perspective, especially in a creative project. And that was just all driven by personal passion and having this idea that I just wanted to see through. And it's something that I'm still immensely passionate about. I don't really think that the album is that great, and I decided it's something I need to keep working on. But working that hard, and I only learned that I could do something like that from, as I was saying earlier, like the trials that I faced at uni taught me how hard I can actually work, how much I actually, if I'm passionate about something, especially, how much I can put in before I'll just be too tired and just dead. I don't know if I could do what I did. Like, that was only like 3 years ago or something. I don't know if I could do that these days. But it's something that I think that I understand why I wouldn't be able to do it these days if I genuinely couldn't. And that's all just down to committing to a project. And even if, like I said, I think it just doesn't sound like great anymore. At the time I was like, this is incredible, I've done such great work. But having that hindsight, being able to evaluate it and understanding why I don't think that, or why I thought it was great then, it's just a learning experience. And even though it kind of, I guess, failed as a project, I understand the good parts of it and the things that I do want to take from it. And also, it's a fun story to talk about how I did an album in like a month. Also, I've just seen that the Tabletop Society is still going strong, which I love to hear. Yes, if you're not part of the society, get yourself on there. I personally think it's great, obviously, but who doesn't love a good board game? Oh yeah, and it's kind of confusing, but Hildeston is what my music project is called, and that's purely just a name that I came up with like 2-3 years ago when I worked on that album. I thought, I need to actually come up with a name for something that I'm working on, and that's where I landed. So even though I've been playing guitar for like 10 years, I only came up with that idea 3 years ago. If I'd come up with that in uni, I would have had so much time to do things. So I implore you, if you're passionate about something, whether it's making games, whether it's music, whether it's photography, anything, if you really do love doing it, I really implore you to do it and see where it takes you. Because worst case scenario, you'll still have learned something from working on those projects, just as I did with that album, and the other things, the Maroon 5 covers. I learned stuff from that. I can't pinpoint exactly what I learned from that, but I learned something. I learned how to play She Will Be Loved. That's what I got from it. Cool. So kind of going a bit less away from the abstract stuff that I've been doing for ages, to something more specific during uni. Collab was, I don't know if they still have it going, but when I was doing it anyway. Collab was a project that encouraged collaboration between the media department and a bunch of other areas. And what we did is I didn't even know about it until one of the lecturers mentioned it to me, hopped on in, and it is one of the best things I ever did. It never would have happened if it hadn't been mentioned to me that I might appreciate it, and I hadn't applied to do it and got in. But some of my best friends that I have now, I met at this project. So basically we, for like, I think it was like for a week, came up with some ideas for installations, artistic installations, to take down to London and show at the South Bank Centre, that all covered the idea of digital privacy, things like that. So there were three little projects part of this. There was one that the lecturers came up with and they were working on, and we kind of helped with a little bit, which was a virtual reality experience. And that was really cool. Never worked with VR before, and I don't even know if I think I've maybe like worked on little bits since, and that's mainly because of seeing it in action here and helping out with what they did. We made it was like a little maze, and then you like got through, and then there was like a crazy reveal at the end where there's a live stream of the person who's using the VR, because we had like a camera that was facing them that we like hid. It was like real artsy. And that was really cool, and it was great to work with VR because it's something that I'd never really thought about using before, and obviously incredibly expensive to get the kit, or obviously you can like there's potential avenues for renting that stuff, I think. But yeah, it was really interesting, and the stuff we did in the other two parts of that project were it was like a digital web-based thing where it would take people's tweets and kind of like display them around like orbiting an Earth kind of thing. And then there was another non-digital project that was about like redacted information, and trying to like discern who looks like a risk dependent on that. And it was really interesting, and we kind of, I think what I took from that was the things that we'd been learning about and trying to teach people about, digital privacy and things like that. Going to a couple of talks whilst we were at the South Bank. It was the Web We Want Festival was what the thing was called, and it was talking about just the idea of what happens to our data. But also what I got from that was just purely the people that I met and the idea of collaboration, which then fed into my dissertation project. I was incredibly passionate about this idea of people working together, and I made like a web and app-based thing where it encouraged people to, if they had like a problem with something, they could like hire people, and it was like using like an electronic currency and stuff. And I don't think I ever would have thought about doing that for my dissertation had I not done something like this. There you go. There's a picture of me as a banana, a real brown banana. This was kind of because I did Collab. I was just so passionate about this idea of like creative, collaborative projects. There was, I heard about this 1215 today through some like events and stuff that we did with the Collab people. And it was a similar kind of thing, except this was kind of like from the ground up, part of the uni trying to discern how to make this kind of project and like what really was important in the development of collaborative art art projects. So the first lab, I joined as a participant, and we kind of just all sat around and chatted about this idea about what we were going to do, and there were different facilitators, and there was a facilitator who came up with a problem, and then there were multiple technologists, and basically like people who were good in certain fields, and then we all split into groups and tried to discuss a potential solution for the problem that was posed by the facilitator, and then the facilitator would pick the one that they thought was the most like fleshed out and the most worth progressing with, and they would kind of like work on that with the technologist. So it was really interesting, great, similar kind of thing with Collab, where great to meet people and learn this new way of thinking that, you know, being from heavy into like coding and stuff, it was really interesting to try and cover like abstract art ideas and projects. But there was definitely a bit of a disconnect with it. And because of working on the first lab, I then ended up moving, applied to do a research project for like 3 months or so, checking out the engagement of the second lab in this project. So I joined the first as a participant, and then the second one I was somebody kind of evaluating what people were getting from it, and that was great because, once again, doing a bunch of stuff that I'd never done before. It's like helping to set up a blog to cover the process, and looking at Google Analytics to check things like bounce rate and things like that, and really analyze why potentially people weren't as engaged. And then the critique that I offered in the third lab, not everything changed, but there were some massive changes. The website was completely overhauled and made a lot easier to use. And the main difference was, rather than having a facilitator and then some technologists and then loads of ideas, all kind of like a melting pot of ideas, that then just one would be picked, and then, you know, people kind of feel like their ideas maybe not as good and they don't really care about engaging with the one that does progress. Instead, it completely changed. So there was just a facilitator who came up with the problem, had a bit of an idea of a solution, and then we just rolled with it from there. And it was great. Although there was a smaller group, it was so much more committed and dedicated. As you can see, we all dressed up as bananas, so we must have cared a fair bit about the project. There's also another one where I was a scientist for apples. So it was all about not just race, but like the acceptance. So this one was about race, and then the apples one was about like ageism and things like that. So, other way around. This one was about ageism. The apples one was about race. So, once again, stuff that I would never do. I don't think I'd ever thought I'd be dressed in a banana costume, talking about being an old man, trying to do a crazy northern accent. But it was really interesting to then take that, and just now I think that I would solve problems in a much more varied way, because rather than just resorting to like, I'm just going to code, I'm going to make a game for this thing, potentially it's not always the solution. And it's quite good to be varied with the ideas that you have, even if the actual solution that you have is the same. You know, it's the same thing that you would normally pick. Just having the influences, knowing that, okay, I know that in this project we did like a video thing, and we use like some certain way of scripting it, or like we use like some certain camera angles that then you can then take to, say, a game project, or you're doing a writing project, and you can kind of take the subtext of another project and understand how that worked to then progress forward. And what I also got from that 12:15 today is it led me on to doing a TEDx talk. And I purely, I guess purely luck in a sense of right place, right time. But I guess the whole point of all of this kind of flow of things is that one thing led to another thing, led to another thing. And it all kind of came about because I just decided to take that leap and say, oh yeah, I'll do Collab. And I made some of the best friends I've ever made and did some interesting stuff that I don't think I would have done if I hadn't done that to start with. And the TEDx was great learning experience because it was learning how to do a talk like this. And there was lots of scripting. Like I spent ages writing out this perfect script for what I was going to say. And what I learned from it was sometimes you can't just heavily script things. You might be watching this and thinking, what a babbling idiot. He's just talking a load of crap. He's just doesn't know what he's saying. And partly that is true. I will give you that. Because I learned from doing this that with my TEDx, it was so heavily scripted and I had this great idea about how I was going to go about. But once I kind of veered off path a little bit, it was very difficult to go back to it. And it just felt like it didn't go as smoothly as I really wanted it to. Whereas really, it was a subject I was really passionate about. I discussed the potential use and importance of being varied in your interests, and the idea of being like a polymath kind of mentality. And discussing that is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I'm the kind of person that I'm not trying to say I'm a polymath because I'm not a genius in loads of things, but that mentality is something that I really hold dear. As you've probably seen from all of these varied kind of slides and projects, is I like having a varied set of skills and understanding. And I kind of discussed that, but I felt like my passion didn't shine through because I was a bit too rigid with what I was talking about. So once again, that's a great example of having something not go exactly as I planned, but it was a learning experience. And from that, I have now adapted the way that I do these talks. And hopefully they're better for it. I'd like to think that somebody watching this is getting something from this kind of incessant rambling. And I'm not going to talk too much about this one, just mainly because I know, for the past year or so, we've been stuck indoors, and it's not the most useful of advice, but I think that the metaphor and what it stands for is important still. Is the idea of traveling, whether that be physically or obviously at the moment can't do that, but just mentally or just being open to new ideas and new places, and new ways of thinking. And it can really help not just with your work, but also just with yourself and your own understanding of what you are as a person, how you tick. And I feel like I personally feel like a happier person now that I understand why I would make a certain decision, or if I really don't feel up to doing something, I'll understand why, and I'll understand my limits of what I can do to still do something but not stress myself out. And so I'll use a more digital example. This is a game that I worked on, I think about a month ago, maybe even less than that. And it was all online, obviously. There's a bunch of my uni friends, and then some people that they know from various walks of life, all kind of got together on a Discord, and worked on a game jam over a weekend. And it was great. We learned all about, I think, different people learn different things about all different ways of doing things. So there was an illustrator who's like a solid illustrator, more physical, and he learned a lot about digital stuff, which was really interesting for him, I think, because it was a way of thinking that he hadn't done before. And probably, for working in the industry for 4 years or so, being at uni for 3 years, this is probably the best game that I've ever worked on. And I really am proud of what we came up with. And even so, I think everybody is really enjoying working on it after the game jam as well. And that probably wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been all stuck inside. And it was great. There was different people from all different walks of life, all different locations. There was one of my friends who I met in uni who is in America, who worked on it, who did the incredible start screen that I'm showing here. And there was a girl in India who did the incredible concept art and also like the kind of backing image of this screen. And yeah, it was a really interesting experience for me musically, and also I kind of worked on the project management side of things. And that was great. It's something that I don't think you can really practice. You can kind of practice like coding, you can practice music, you can practice illustration. It's kind of difficult to project manage without having a project. So yeah, basically rounding it off, because I'm sure you're kind of sick of me rambling. My final points are just do things, and feel okay about failing, because what you'll learn from it is a lot more valuable than just not doing it to start with. And do it all at your own pace. Learn what you can do, what you can't do, and don't push yourself to the point of like just being incredibly tired and not being able to learn something from it. Just learn what you can and can't do through failure, and just be open to trying things out. And what I will encourage you to do, this is a point where if we was in person, I'd be all dramatic and throw out pieces of paper and stuff. Can't do that, obviously. But I would like to encourage everyone watching this to get up a notepad or do it physically on a piece of paper if you want. Just write down a really basic idea and take that idea and promise yourself that you will see that idea through to completion. No matter how great or poorly it goes, no matter how big or small that idea, and whether you have to like take it back a bit, as I was saying earlier, sometimes you need to use your passion to cut things out. Just promise yourself that by the end of your time at uni, or let's just say within a year, you will see that idea to the point that you plan to have it, and understand where it maybe went wrong, where it went well, and use it as a learning experience, so that the mistakes you make during it, you won't make again. Or if you do, you'll make them with a bit more knowledge, and you'll understand where you are and what you're getting from it. And thanks for having me. This is all my stuff. Please feel free to add me on LinkedIn, give me some feedback about the talk, ask me some questions on there. You can ask me some questions now. Thanks.
Yep, thank you very much, Zach. That was a very passionate talk about everything that you've done at uni. And I really like how you talk passionately about the subject, that you've got a slide up that you talk about your experiences, everything you've done in first year, second year, third year, talking about your experiences in tabletop society, experiences as a developer, your passion as music. That was fantastic. Thank you very much, Zach.
Thanks.
So
sorry, I went a little bit over. Sorry about
that. No worries at all. It's clear that you're a very good public speaker, and I'm confident that that the passion that you show, that people are grabbing it and making something out of it. So of course, guys, if you've got any questions in the chat, or if you're not so sure, feel free to contact Zach Jones over, well, he's got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or have a listen at his album on YouTube as well, Hildestone.
Yeah, the album's not around anywhere, but there's a live session of one of the singles that I'm still planning to release whenever I can get out there. That's on there. And yeah, like I said, please add me on LinkedIn, and I will do my best to offer some advice, answer some questions if you have any, or if you want to collaborate, I'm always up for that.
That's great. Thank you very much, Zach. Unfortunately, that's everything that we've got time for today. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. We hope that you enjoyed it. And thank you very much, Zach, for the chat. I'll see you around, guys.